Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
And I'm Mac.
And today we're giving our first impressions of Wyrmspan.
Wyrmspan.
A Wingspan game.
Kind of. Inspired by Wingspan.
Yes, it is inspired by Wingspan. So, which is one of the most popular games of the last 5 years, for sure. Whether it's been hated aggressively or loved, I think people have very strong feelings about Wingspan. And I think it sold like millions and millions of copies, so it's not surprising that they would go back to some of our games would go back to kind of the Wingspan system and try to continue putting content out. They put a lot of expansions out.
Well, I mean,
so it's
Lord
not like
knows
they haven't.
Every other company does it with certain games, as well, patchwork.
Yes, milking their cash cows, so to say.
Excuse me.
But, so this is Wyrmspan, which is the first of the games that are in the Wingspan world. I don't know if they'll ever have more, but this one has a theme of dragons. And then it's got some changes from Wingspan, but
you can definitely feel the Wingspan presence, though.
Just from our first two plays, I can definitely say you can tell that they are definitely one inspired the other for sure. They have a lot of very similar things, and I'll say that I was excited because it was Wingspan, and that's my last year it was my number 2 game of all time. But at the same time, I was hoping, I think I've probably said this on many videos, but I was hoping for a fish version if they ever did redo the theme. So dragons was disappointing to me, and some people probably argue that dragons can kind of be seen as sort of fish in certain things, but I don't believe that. I mean, when I'm talking fish, I mean real fish.
Yeah.
Not dragon fish.
Well, you were on the Fish and Wildlife team for FFA, so.
That's true. So that's where that comes from. But I can see how a dragon theme would appeal to gamers. And this one is kind of, I think, takes Wingspan to the next level a little bit in some ways.
Yep.
So I can see why they would probably use this theme instead of fish, just because a fish theme would be kind of, I think, in the same realm of birds, where you're inviting kind of everyone to play the game, so you have to still keep it relatively easy to learn and play for wide variety of people, whereas dragons, I think, is going to be a smaller subset of people.
It's gonna lean towards the more board gamers.
Yes. And I think after our games of it, I would say that it does bring it to the next level a little bit. But at the same time, I don't know that it's so much that if you didn't like Wingspan at all, I don't know that this one does enough that you're all of a sudden going to like this.
I thought it was interesting.
If you wanted more from it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because I'm not sure if it's because I have background playing Wingspan or if it's just more, like, the points are more accessible, but I feel like I'm, like, outscoring what I normally even do in Wingspan, so I'm not sure how I'm doing it, but I was like, because I think I scored, like, 85 and 95, and that, for me, in Wingspan is, like, top-tier game. Like, I can never get that high often. So I'm like, either it's easier to get points or this makes more sense.
I feel both my scores were higher than kind of our first games of Wingspan 2. So I think in general this one must just score more points. I think it's easier to get your dragons out. You're more likely to get more dragons out in this one than you are birds in Wingspan, I think. Even though it's in a way more difficult to get them out.
Yes.
Because we'll get into the gameplay, some of the differences. In this one of the biggest differences, I would say, is that instead of just having all your slots open, so typically in Wingspan you would have 3 rows that you can add birds to, and you're just adding it to the leftmost spot in the row, and really outside of paying costs and eggs for the bird, you really don't have to pay anything else, or you don't have to do anything else to the board. But in this one, you have to first kind of prep the area, so to say.
Explore the cave.
Excavate the
cave.
And so then you got 2 sets of cards that you're managing now instead of just the one.
Which is really interesting because you can only have 9 total cards in your hand of like both combined.
Yes, in Wingspan there's like no limits on anything. And in this one there are hard limits of 9 for resources, 9 for coins, 9 for cards. It's a little strange. I don't know.
But it's because you
There
can
must
trade
have
them
been-
in for stuff.
Yeah.
So it doesn't want you to have too many extra.
That could be it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're excavating first before you can put the dragon on those spots. You start with 3 open,
Yeah.
and in this one, instead of having 15 total spots, it's only 12 total spots. So you'll only ever have 12 dragons. So obviously, it's easier to fill it in,
Yeah.
which you did
I
in the
did.
second game. And
Did it.
I don't remember. Have you ever filled in your entire board on Wingspan?
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it.
I know I have not many. I might have once or twice, and I've
Yeah.
played like over 100 games of Wingspan. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not that good at it, but you'd think it would happen more often. And then Wyrmspan, I could definitely see it happening more often.
Yeah. But it's nice because the caves that you're excavating, those cave cards, come with like a benefit.
Instant benefits.
Yeah, and a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes you can get ones where it's like lay a dragon immediately and stuff. So there's kind of there's like these chaining cards that you can get, which I'm sure Wingspan has a couple of those, but not probably at the frequent, because there's got to be at least 2 of those cards, or in some form you can
Yeah.
do something at a discount to move it along to like kind of chain your turn.
Yeah, I would agree that there's definitely more chaining in this one. There are situations in Wingspan where you can potentially, like, you have some birds that's like, oh, it takes a wheat to tuck 2 cards or something, and then you could have another bird that gives you a wheat or something. So then you could take that wheat that you just got after you activated that one and use that.
Sure.
So there are some of that, but yeah. That is more rare, I would say, in Wingspan, at least the games I've played.
Yeah.
Whereas in here, it's going to happen like all the time, where you're going to have those chaining things, or else you might be able to excavate a second cave or something. It just kind of plays off each
There's
other.
a variety in the chain. So.
So yeah, I would say to me that was the biggest thing. I think there's also the Dragon Guild, which kind of just is a thing that you're going around that gets you additional benefits, which is interesting, but at the same time, I don't know if it's like that game-changing. Wingspan doesn't really have anything like that, but
Well, I think it's good though, because like in Wingspan, you're going, like, if you're in the middle row, you get an egg. You get, or you're doing your birds, and then you get however many eggs at the end of it, right? And this one, it's more of like you get a food, and then you get a Dragon Guild, which could be whatever, depending on where
could
you're
be
at.
cards, could be food, could
And
be
then you get,
action.
and then if by the time you get to the next dragon, if you have it, then you get another food. So it's kind of like this balance of, like, instead of giving you it all at the end of your track or whatever it is, like 3 food, you get it going forward, and it kind of
just
changes.
every
And
time
it's
you activate
guaranteed,
Explore.
kind of a nice thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was same but different.
Yeah, I thought it was a good thing to add. I would say most of the things that they changed in this were good. I will say one time when, because I'm used to Wingspan, I had not excavated a cave yet, and I thought I was just going to play the dragon, and that obviously did not work.
Yeah, you forgot.
So there is that you have to remember. That was
But
the one thing.
He's won both times.
That is true.
Be a tiebreaker once.
That's true. And then, the other thing is you're spending coins instead of cubes, so it's not necessarily a set amount of actions each round.
You can get more.
I found that interesting because you could get more, but it seemed like when you were getting more, it was towards the end of the game, and it almost, instead of where Wingspan, it felt like you started with a lot of turns and worked your way down and you got to do less and less. In this one, it felt like the opposite, and it, like, the last rounds were taking, like, players' turns could take a long time.
Yeah.
So I think that is how a lot of games
Typically
do
go.
work, I guess. There's a lot of games that do that. But then there is obviously the downtime, especially in higher player count games, once you start getting into some of those later rounds.
Yes.
So that is one negative, I think.
It was funny, though, because our first playthrough, I think round 3, you start with 6, and I think I got up to like 9 actions.
Mhm.
And then in the last round of that game, I was stuck at 6. I could not get another one to save me, but in our second game, I was able to get a couple more in the last couple of rounds. So it was interesting, because I was like, I'm stuck at 6. I don't know how to get more.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Trying trying to think, was there anything else that was major changes? The artwork is obviously different. I would say I much prefer the Wingspan artwork.
I thought this artwork was good. I thought it was in line with what the Wingspan, that was a lot of W's, with what the Wingspan artwork was.
I think this...
It's more fantasy driven.
It has more whiteness than I would like. I don't know if it's because the Wingspan cards have, like, the bottoms are brown and stuff, if that makes that much of a difference versus the white cards, but it just seems like there was a lot of white in the game. It almost seemed prototypey to me, but it wasn't my favorite. I feel like I would prefer the art as more of like a bigger picture that I'd hang on a wall than in the game. I wasn't the biggest fan of the artwork. But I guess when I think of like watercolor dragons, I think of even more color than they had. There were some that had some color and stuff, but it just didn't seem as, I don't know, bright and colorful as I would have liked, personally.
I thought they were fun. They had cute names for some of them, and kind of there's like a whole book that talks about
whole book
all
of
the
facts
different
for dragons.
And it seems like there's some that are like family type dragons. So I don't know. I thought they were cute. I liked it. Some come with like, I'm trying to think of a dragon themed game that I wasn't a fan of, or the artwork, but I thought it was a good line between being too cutesy and being like too like hardcore serious like dragon art, you know.
Maybe it's because it didn't choose a side. Maybe that's why I didn't like it.
I thought they were good.
But yeah, I mean it was fine. I would prefer the bird cards, I guess, personally.
Well, Wingspan is kind of your favorite game, so
one of the favorites. Yeah. But yeah, so after those games, I would still say I really enjoyed the plays of it, and I think the mechanics are all really sound. And I'd put this one probably at like a 9 or possibly higher. It kind of depends. It's hard because I'm comparing it to Wingspan.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just something about Wingspan seems so clean after playing it so many times.
Yeah.
And this one could probably get there too. But yeah, just right now, there's just some things that are different that, I don't know. I think the excavating, I like it, but then at the same time, it doesn't feel as clean. And
Sure.
I would say if you don't like any luck in your games, then I would definitely suggest this one, because your food that you're getting is not random like in Wingspan. So that difference is, I think, a good one as well. But there's something about, I don't know, when you have a better feel about how to play Wingspan, I think you are better able to utilize the dice tower. And there are going to be games where you just don't get what you want. There are going to be those times, don't get me wrong. But I think once you get used to the game more, you can learn how to take advantage of that.
Interesting.
I don't know. That's the feeling I get. I don't know if that's actually true. It's not true compared to obviously being able to pick whatever resource you want. But
I don't know. I feel like I'm like flipped completely from your stance, because maybe it's just because I played Wingspan and I haven't played this without that background. But I feel like Wingspan is more approachable in theme, but after playing the two games, I feel like Wyrmspan might be the easier of the two, because sure, Wingspan in its basic is easy, but to get the points, you have to play that engine building just right, like not perfectly, but you have to know what to do with those cards, and I feel like this is more forgiving in that way, because
maybe
after however many plays of Wingspan that I've done, which is not in the hundreds, like I feel like I still can't optimize some of those cards. So I don't know. But I have a background of Wingspan, so I don't know if that made this easier or not. But
yeah, I mean, maybe it could be. I don't know, because it's weird, because I like the dragons that have like endgame scoring, and I think some of those kind of take the place of the cards you used to get. But at the same time, it kind of felt like, well, I scored pretty high, I think, in both of our games with those.
Okay.
But I would say 2 or 3 of those I lucked into, and they were just happened to end up matching with what I was doing and were big points. And I'm like, that could happen in Wingspan too when you're grabbing new goals, but in this one it just kind of felt lucky. I don't know.
That's funny because I feel like Wingspan is lucky because I like can never get cards, or it's probably just the difference because it seems like you can get any card and you can chain them. I feel like I can get any card and sit there and go, I don't know, can I discard this one and get a new one? But so I was surprised that I was able to understand the dragons better, like that I scored so close to you, because in Wingspan I don't score that close to you. So
yeah, I think this one still is really clean and smooth of a game. I don't think it's like too jagged, but
no, that's not what I'm trying to say. I guess it's just interesting my ability between the two games. But
yeah, I get that. I think there's also something too that I find satisfying about when you do get like a really satisfying row in Wingspan and just spamming it. Like in this game, you can't do that. That doesn't happen in this game.
Yeah,
that is one of the biggest differences in feeling of the game. If you really like to have that possible, satisfying, amazing engine of birds that you just get to see how many points, how many tuck cards you get, how many eggs, maybe managing eggs or getting a bunch of high point birds played or something. If you have one that, one of the ravens or something that some people say are overpowered, which they probably are, especially early on in the game. Whereas in this one, even if you get a great row, the most you can trigger it is 3 times, and it becomes more and more costly as you do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The actions definitely are different between the two games. So, I'll probably give this an 8 or an 8.5. I could see this surpassing Wingspan for me, so.
I was going to ask, what is Wingspan at for you right now? Because I know that's.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of just slowly kind of fallen for you, not necessarily like. It's way low, but like,
it's solid, and part of it is just that when we play it, I have to separate the fact that I'm playing against you out of it because he has tons more plays than me. So I can't ever go into Wingspan expecting to really win because I'm not that good at the engine building. Like I've said throughout this video, I struggle to get cards and make them work.
I think it's kind of like Red Rising where you had to play it more and more so that you know all the cards pretty much.
That's true.
That can come up.
Yeah, that's true. And I like most of the expansions, but I'm not a huge fan of some of them. So then when you want to play with, like, I think it's the Oceania one, I'm kind of like, not super interested in that. So, I don't know. I can see them, I can see it being grouped into the same slot for at least a year, but I think they probably will separate. I'd guess Wingspan is probably like a 7 right now.
So, probably liking this one maybe more.
I think so. But it could be just because it's fresh.
And I will also say, I feel like a lot of the ideas that were in this one could have probably just been implemented in an expansion to Wingspan.
Yeah.
And worked just the same.
Probably.
Like.
But he's got the big box. He's not gonna do another big box.
I know, but I mean, I think you could have done some of the things that are in here in a Wingspan game, and we might see that, but it does make me wonder if it could have just been that instead. But yeah, I would say if you're looking at the two and have never played either one, I would first ask you if you are really into the bird or dragon theme, or really off-put by one of them. And if that was the case, I would just tell you to play the other one, because I think they're close enough that if you really prefer a theme over the other, I think you're just better off doing that.
Yeah.
And then,
I do think it's good to have both of them in the collection, though.
Yeah.
They are definitely different. Very much inspired by one, but I think they're definitely different if you really like Wingspan and you're really into board games.
Yeah, I think that's all about this game. We've got an unboxing video with all the components and then all the upgraded components if you want to see that as well. I got the pack of those. I will say that definitely enhances the experience.
We don't have the basic ones, do we?
Well, we do have the basic ones. I put them in a bag and they're sitting in a drawer.
I see. I was like, I didn't see the cardboard pieces.
Yeah, everything in the box kind of is pretty snug, so I was just like, okay, I'm putting these somewhere else.
Good call.
But yeah, otherwise we hope to see you on that video, and as always, don't forget to keep on nibbling on our content.